The air in our dining room didn't just cool, it crystallized into a jagged, suffocating frost the exact second my mother-in-law, Evelyn, smoothly slid the beautifully decorated dessert bowl toward my 5-year-old daughter. It wasn't an innocent gesture of grandmotherly love. It was a cold, calculated trap meant to trigger the severe medical crisis that had already landed my little girl in the emergency room twice before. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think about family dynamics, or the sanctity of Evelyn's prestigious annual anniversary dinner. I lunged across the polished mahogany table, my hand moving with a predatory speed that startled everyone in the room. Smack! The force of my hand striking the porcelain bowl sent it shattering across the floor, staining the expensive white tablecloth with crimson strawberry residue. Evelyn instantly clutched her chest, her eyes gleaming with a terrifying, manufactured tragedy as she morphed into the ultimate victim. "You ungrateful, unstable brat," she shrieked, her voice echoing off the walls. "I spent hours preparing this meal, and your paranoia is destroying my home." In that singular, silent pulse, something inside me didn't just snap. It evolved into total, lethal stillness. For nearly a decade, Evelyn had meticulously crafted her role as the family's moral architect, a self-appointed judge who used flawless etiquette as a cloak for psychological warfare. To the in-laws, she was the sophisticated, deeply religious pillar of strength. But to me, she was a relentless predator. She operated in the shadows of polite conversation, using subtle, cutting remarks about my career to paint me as distracted, and insidious jabs at my parenting to frame me as incapable. I had treated her toxicity like a storm to be weathered, mistakenly believing that my silence was a shield. It wasn't. To a manipulator like Evelyn, silence is nothing more than a green light, an invitation to escalate. She viewed my 5-year-old daughter's very existence as a threat to her throne, testing boundaries by whispering venomous lies to my husband about my unstable temperament. When my daughter began suffering from sudden, terrifying stomach illnesses, only after spending weekends at Grandma's house, Evelyn weaponized the medical emergencies to claim I was neglectful. She mistook my patience for weakness, never realizing that while I was keeping the peace, I was also keeping an unyielding ledger. Refusing to rely on assumptions when my 5-year-old daughter's life was on the line, I stopped guessing and started executing. 1 week prior to the dinner, I took surgical action. During a brief visit to Evelyn's house, I discreetly installed 4 4K micro-spy cameras, completely disguised as ordinary USB wall chargers, in her pristine kitchen. When I finally reviewed the downloaded footage, the reality was more horrifying than my darkest suspicions. The lenses didn't just catch bad hygiene, they caught Evelyn calmly, systematically grinding a known severe allergen into a mortar and pestle, then folding it directly into the strawberry purees meant specifically for my daughter. She was smiling coldly to herself, operating with the terrifying peace of a seasoned criminal. I didn't call the police immediately, nor did I spark a private confrontation where she could easily delete the files, spin a web of tears, or manipulate my husband. Instead, I chose the grandest stage possible. I archived every video file, timestamped the audio logs, and quietly waited for her annual anniversary dinner. I wanted her entire curated audience present for the total narrative collapse. Back in the dining room, Evelyn was still putting on a masterclass in manufactured tragedy, crying to my husband about how my unhinged behavior was ruining her perfect evening. I didn't engage in her chaos. Instead, I moved with surgical precision. I pulled my phone from my pocket, not to call for help, but to execute a pre-planned digital strike. With a few swift taps, I cast my screen directly to the massive 75-inch smart TV dominating the dining room wall. The room transformed from a family sanctuary into a high-definition courtroom. Let's look at the reality Evelyn doesn't want you to see, I said, my voice a low, lethal whisper that cut through her screeching like a blade. Suddenly, the speakers weren't filled with her cries, but with her own crisp voice, plotting on a phone call, a few more trips to the hospital, and my son will realize she can't protect that little girl. Before she could breathe, the screen switched to the 4K kitchen footage, showing Evelyn frame by frame crushing the allergen into the food. The color vanished from her face. The perfect matriarch was dismantled. The fallout was absolute. As the final video clip finished, the silence in the living room wasn't just quiet, it was lethal. My husband stood up, his face a mask of cold, unadulterated fury as he turned toward his mother. The realization that she had been systematically poisoning his 5-year-old daughter shattered his lifelong loyalty in seconds. The perfect matriarch facade had been shredded, leaving behind a terrified, cornered animal. Evelyn started stammering, trying to dismiss the 4K footage as misunderstood or out of context, but the sheer cruelty in her own voice was completely undeniable. She looked around the table for support, hunting for her usual defenders, but the eyes of the entire family were cold, judgmental, and closed to her. She had built her status on the subtle ruins of others, and now the foundation had completely collapsed under the weight of her own hubris. "Get out of our lives," my husband said, his voice dropping to a harsh, final whisper. Evelyn tried to storm out, hoping someone would follow, but not a single person moved. She left her own house entirely alone. Justice Valley doesn't operate on rumors, we operate on cold, hard reality. The final blow wasn't loud, it was cold, swift, and permanent. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn tried to orchestrate a desperate comeback, spinning frantic tales of my sudden breakdown to the extended family. She anticipated their immediate sympathy, but the digital truth had already outrun her malice. I had ensured that the complete evidence package, the 4K video, the audio files, the undeniable reality of her character, was delivered to every single member of our wider social and family circle. By the time she picked up the phone to spin her narrative, she found herself blocked, ignored, and effectively excommunicated from the inner circle. She didn't just lose her reputation, she lost her seat at the table. When the next major family gathering occurred, she wasn't just uninvited, she was never even mentioned. It was as if she had been entirely erased from the family history she worked so hard to manipulate. I saw her months later at a local grocery store. She looked older, tired, and remarkably small compared to the giant ego she once carried. I simply walked past her without a single flicker of recognition. She was forced to live as a ghost in the silence of her own consequences.